Hi everybody, I hope you're all doing well. I'm channeling God today. So what is God to you? I was raised a Catholic, got a lot of years talking to God, and it's my go-to. I've always seen God as the classic old man with the big white beard in the clouds. But if I were to take the image away, and I took away that representation, it would just be love, right? Love that hears me, love that cares about me, love that nurtures me. Love that literally has zero intention of hurting me, which is an interesting thing to say. Do you feel like God hurts you? Do you feel like God doesn't love you? Do you feel like your life goes through challenges and you're just cast out to go through this alone? Do you ever hold a grudge against God? It's interesting to be human and explore our relationship, what God means to us and what life means. And so God has always been there for me. And one of the things that I find interesting about God is God represents free will. And so I've concluded that the most profound kind of love is the love that is free will. And so God will not step in. God will not interfere. You could beg God to interfere. Will God interfere? Is it for you to go through these experiences and to let God love you through the entire thing? Have you ever had a best friend where you could not actually do anything to help them? All you could do was watch. Isn't that a profound kind of love? And so I love God for that. And there were times in my life where I really felt like God had abandoned me. And I was angry because God was my best friend. And God was always there for me. But I started to conclude that if God was there for me, then why all of this? And I felt deeply abandoned. I felt deeply conflicted. I felt deeply confused. Because my life has been pretty spiritually based, pretty connected. And so when I'm in conflict with that connection, it's pretty loud and deeply impactful of my emotional well-being. It's a great sorrow for my soul. It took a lot of years to grow out of that. And I think it takes courage to grow out of it. To start to understand what that kind of love is and that it's necessary to go through these hard times so that we can become wise, so we could become leaders. We could really show our strength. Like, what would God be if God held your hand through everything in life and you never knew challenge? So that you could be proud of yourself for overcoming it. And that God was there for you through the whole thing. Just by being there, you know? And so that's a very profound kind of love to me. And so that's my experience of God. You should share your experience of God in the comments. We all have our own definition of what God is. Sometimes I call God the love of all. God is a complete kind of love. I'm pretty in awe by the whole meaning and concept of it. But I feel a connection there and it really moves me and it's moved me since I was little. So for me to channel God is like every night, every morning I talk to God. I even talk to God during the day. Pretty much talk to God all the time. So I'm going to talk to God again. I'm going to talk to God with all of you guys. So I'm going to close my eyes here, get in the zone, and then we'll see what comes, okay? All right, I'm shown the earth, and it actually has a curvature. Even though I see only a small space of earth, I'm actually standing on a curvature, and there's a patch of very small, just like short 3-leaf clovers. There's also a bit of mud. There seems like a black smear over here, almost like a rip in time and space. There's something kind of muddy and dark about this scene. I can't really see the treetops. I can see tree trunks. And it's sort of in the midst of the rip. And so I'm just taking in this scene and let's see what it means. Let's see what comes next. It's an opportunity for me to evaluate myself truly. It's almost like I'm looking at this picture and I'm trying to make sense of its meaning. And in this case, it's not that the meaning is going to be interpreted as an external answer. It's going to be interpreted as an internal answer. I'm welcome to sit down. And I think, oh, I'm going to challenge this. Why don't I sit on that rip over there? Why don't I sit in the mud? Why don't I sit on the 3-leaf clovers because that looks nice? Why don't I sit on those trees? It's almost like there's a bit of a snappy, kind of bitter, like, okay, great. Yes, I'll sit down and then I'll go within myself and then I'll find the answer. It's almost annoying. It's like everyday life. You're talking to me about everyday life. Where am I going to sit today? Pleasant place, uncomfortable place, in the rip between space and time, in those weird tree trunks that I can't see the treetops. It's almost like one of those moments where you're asked to kind of go within and it feels like the eye roll moment. If you've gone within enough times, you're going to know what I'm talking about. This isn't like your first spin on going within. This is like your 20 millionth spin on going within. It gets old after a while. It's almost like it'd be nice if the answer would just fall into my lap or just call me on the phone or, and it wouldn't take a lot to access it. It would just be spelled out. Like I could see the writing on the wall externally. All right, so it is what it is. You know what? It's almost like God challenges me back and I'm sitting in a place that I didn't conclude I could sit. And it's in the air. And so I'm sitting in the air, like levitating above all of this. And I suddenly start to cry. Because it proves to me that my mind will never be enough. And my mind sees and it concludes and it deduces that these are my options. But there's always an option that you didn't see. And obviously here in an energy space, you can levitate. Human world levitation just... it's not really accessible yet. At least not to me. I haven't figured it out. But here I'm levitating. And then God says something else. Because I'm still kind of emotional about this. And I guess I had concluded that there was more work to do and it's tiring. It's like, oh, great, I'll go sit down again. I'll go within again. And it's all kind of, it's all too familiar. But it's like there's a trying aspect of it. And God is showing me that this isn't to exhaust me. This isn't to create disappointment or annoyance. It's actually to comfort me. So while this is me, yes, this is you. This is all of us on some level where our life is asking us to go within and it sucks. But what's interesting is that in doing so, it's not the work that you need to do. It's the love that wants to come in and nurture you through this time. If you can get out of the way of yourself and just let this happen, the love is going to come in and the love is going to help you. That was really nice to hear that, actually. So I experienced levitating. I experienced the surprise and the relief, even in the surprise. The reminder that my mind won't always see literally everything. There's always something I miss. I had to give in. To know this isn't a trying time, this is letting the love in. It's illuminating me from the inside out. It's not a trying thing to do. So I'm letting God in. I'm letting love in. And so we're doing it together. We're not alone. So you're levitating here. You're letting God in. It's letting love in. However you want to define God. But God is a really wise and incredible representation of what love is. Completely. Not incompletely. Completely. Can you even fathom it, you know? Can you even fathom what complete love is? I think it's unfathomable. So it always surprises me. That means I can't fathom it. I like it when I'm surprised. I like it when I can't fathom it and it becomes clear to me that I thought I could at some point, and now, yet again, it's proven. It makes me happy. So as we levitate here, it's just oxygen, and oxygen in the spirit realm is just breathing in the living spirit energy, you know? It's breathing in the light of your own soul. It's remembering who you are, your connection with all things. It's rehabilitating. Strange how we go through a human life and life itself has a way of choking us a bit. We choke ourselves. We doubt ourselves. We worry. We fear. These are all suffocating decisions. But when we're at peace, then we breathe. And it's just like the eye roll and the annoyance, like, oh God, I gotta do this again. It's choking. It's just be at peace and breathe. You know? It's nice. So, here we are levitating, letting God, letting love in, breathing. We doing it together. We're literally doing this together. Even if this is just my experience, right, and I'm sharing it with you, and you're following along with me, we are doing this together. It's not just in our minds. It's in our souls. It's in our connection. It's in this moment. I speak, I receive, you receive. Shared event happening here. Even if we aren't sharing the same physical space, we are sharing still space and time. And what's interesting is when I say that we share space and time, I see that the original scene with the rip starts to repair. And it surprised me, almost like not levitating. I'm just like collapsed onto the ground, like flailing, like, wow, we fixed the rip. I didn't know that was going to happen. And I fall into the 3-leaf clovers. And I don't know why, but this makes me cry a bit too. Like, if I were to fall from a levitating situation where I'm peacefully meditating and receiving God breathing, I fall out of it, I would expect to fall in mud. That's interesting because you could say that that negative thinking would manifest the muddy outcome, but it proves that that's not always the case. We have to be reminded that life is an experience. And sometimes it's not necessarily like we choose it. Sometimes it's chosen for us. And so we could think about that, you know? And naturally, falling on the 3-leaf clovers, I'm thinking about that. If I fell into the mud, I would think about it differently, you know? But I didn't fall in the mud, I fell in the 3-leaf clovers. You can't really argue with the way things happen. The way things happen, is perfect. We have to go through an experience where we just want to have control. But the more we let go of it, and the more we trust in everything, again, it brings in the breath, it brings in the peace. I kind of cry a bit because I feel like it was a kind thing that I fell onto the clovers. And it's a kind thing that I got to see the rip mend. Almost like I doubted that it would ever mend. Almost like I conclude that in God's world, where God understands or is an expression of love completely, that I would conclude that it would be cruel. That's something to say right there, you know what I mean? Because how often do we do that? We just conclude that it'll be a cruel outcome so we can cope with it better. So it's easier that way. I don't necessarily believe that you manifest the dark completely. Believe that you need to experience it. You need to not fear it. Then sometimes it convinces you of things. But expect pleasant surprises. And take notice. You ever have one of those moments where, let's say you have a glass of milk and you were kind of erratic with your arms and you bumped it. And for whatever reason, it didn't spill. You ever have one of those moments where it's like, it didn't spill? Oh my gosh, God loves me. For some reason, it worked out. I gotta take note of this one and put it in my pocket. I gotta hold on to that one. I better get a lottery ticket. It's like one of those moments. Because it's almost like you expect the worst of circumstances. Life is colorful, It's creative, it's good, and it's bad. It's how you work through it. And then how you're mindful. I like this message so far, It's a good message. So I thank God for all of this. As God's about the mud since I pointed that out. Maybe there's something I'm not seeing. God asked me to go stand up, go take some steps, get in the mud. What do you think? It's like for me to decide. All it is a request and then an experience, and it's for me to decide what I think about that. So let me see. I say it doesn't really... It's just mud, It's like if I decided on some random moment, I'll put my boots on and just go stand in the mud. It would just be like, okay, standing in the mud, I guess. There's nothing really profound about it. I tell that to God. There's nothing profound about it. It's just mud. And then the scene changes in a way. I start to see that there's carpet appearing all around, and I've been traipsing around on white carpet with muddy boots. And I start to cry and I say, why have I done this to myself? Could I have prevented it? And the other me that's actually in this strange space where there is no carpet, that me says, no, you couldn't have prevented it. You followed your heart, you stood in the mud. How were you supposed to know everything was going to turn into white carpet? And then I hear myself say, in the world of white carpet with muddy boots, I say, I should have known better. I should have just been prepared. I should have expected this. But then the other me shakes her head and says, be honest. You couldn't have known. And then the me in the white carpet world cries and she admits there really was no way of avoiding this. Now I have to decide what I'm going to do. And it feels like a much bigger problem than it really is. You could just take off the muddy boots and then start cleaning the carpet, you know? And maybe it won't ever be the same unless it's replaced. And maybe I can clean it though. Maybe I can do a good enough job for now. It's like the memory could be stained in there, or the memory could be wiped clean. We just don't know. And now I find myself back sitting on the clovers. And I say, I guess that's the message about the mud. We still have tree trunks. It's a dark night sky. The ground is rounded, almost like I'm sitting on top of the heads of the planet. But it looks like this in a very small space. Tell God I'm just kind of in a deep place about all these messages. I feel kind of tired. I feel kind of strange. Do I have the energy to look at these tree trunks? Because if I explore them, it's going to be another profound message. I got to be able to breathe through this. It might impact me. Okay, I can do this. There are no treetops. There are only tree trunks. That's all I can see, tree trunks of a forest. The rip isn't there, but I'm just not allowed to see treetops for some reason. I say, God, I don't know why, but it makes me nervous to ask you to help me understand what the tree trunks represent. But I'm going to get solid here. Okay, what do the tree trunks represent? Oh, it's pretty sad. The trees represent people. And the reason there's no tops on the trees is because they're all decapitated. And their bodies are burned and blistered. And you can't hear their screaming voices because they have no heads. And their necks are kind of decapitated with the heads, like there's no screaming. But I'm screaming when I see this horrific scene. And I scream for them. Then I can't fix it. I didn't make this mistake. I didn't do this. And I can't undo what's been done, and I can't put it back. And I can't make it the way I would conclude it should be. That I can't fix it. And I cry. And I actually say, God, what are we going to do about this? This has to do with war. This has to do with cruelty, evil, torturous decision making. And I'm kind of tired of it. I'm kind of tired of this being a part of our world. I'm kind of tired of the learning. You know? It's like the eye roll conversation. Oh, great, I gotta go within again so I can discover what. But this time, it's easy for some reason. It's like the love's coming to me. So, kind of funny, I'm wearing glasses with my eyes closed. I was doing some reading before this video. All right. Let's just look at this scene. It's safe to look at this. I say I got the courage. I owned it. I'm going to look at the tree trunks. This is what I get to witness. Now I've got to digest this. God, what is your wisdom on this? God asked me how I feel. Kind of like, if God is love completely, then these decapitated humans are a representation of that complete love. And how does that make me feel? Say it's incomprehensible. I had this thought earlier this morning because I see every single person as a representation of God. We don't know everything. That's the joy of being human and the suffering of being human as well, because we want to. But I try to find joy in not knowing. And I saw in my mind all these protests. I saw horrific things in my mind. I saw God is a part of every human being that's participating in this way or that way, or just an onlooker from afar. Every single person that is somehow connected, just even in thought and question. We are all parts of God. And if God is capable of torture, if God is capable of begging for God's own life, if God is capable of being a liar, a manipulator, terrorist, a greedy person, a poor person, a starving person, a person who wonders, is God falling apart? Is God whole and complete? This morning I thought it. I said, God, are you falling apart? Or are you whole? So I'm revisiting that right now. My memory of what came back to me in the answer, it's almost like when it is really unclear, and when you have the gall to say such a thing, God, are you falling apart? Don't lose yourself if you don't have to. What does it mean to lose yourself? To lose the God spark within you? Was it the challenge to be love completely? And if we let go of that love completely, we aren't so much of the God within us as just an animated body by some influence of chaos. That wouldn't that also on some level be God? And so which part of God are we? But the feeling was brief, and it was that don't fall apart. If you see God falling apart, don't fall apart with God. Don't fall apart. It was as simple as that. And to not fall apart means I don't have to fall apart. I can be myself as best as I know how to be. And I can be collected, and I know how that feels. And I know how it feels to have confidence in the decisions that you make, because you take the time to make those decisions and you honor what is the honest way to be, the best that you can be, because we can't be every single thing. Sometimes I feel like the world expects us to be every single thing. I just want to live my basic life. That I can't be the perfect this and the most intelligent that and the best at this and every single thing. I can just be what I can be. It's all I can be. And I see all the bodies fall to the ground, and there's no forest, and there's a horizon. And the question is, should I feel guilty because I was one that did not get decapitated? And the answer is no. I would choose not to carry guilt, because I have no means of making any real difference in war by being who I am, where I live, with what I have. And my heart's calling says I have to stay true to what I can do, and this is what I can do. To share this message, to try to help others not fall apart, to get you thinking. So I thank God for all of these messages. Then I asked God if there was one more thing I could say that would bring it all full circle, what would it be? Shows me the sun But it's not just about the sun rises. It's like the dawn of a new day. And there's sort of a beautiful feeling about that. It's almost like every part of this message is some memory from some other lifetime, where we somehow fell peacefully into the clover patch and not into the mud, where we made choices to walk into the mud and it meant nothing and then it meant everything, where we had to go within again, where we discovered a way that we never thought of before, when it ended up being peaceful instead of more work to do. And we were tired and yet still had the courage to say, I can do this. I can take a look at those trunks of the trees. I could take a look at something difficult and I could try to understand. In many lifetimes we've done these things. And that's what makes us all human, makes us all understand perhaps this message. Not because of this life, but because we are timeless, or many things. Or many echoes of the same thing with just little nuances that are different, but we know what this message is about. Not just in our mind, but in our heart and soul. So, that's the message. Thank you all so much for being part of this experience with me. Boy, you just never know what you're going to get. And feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. What did this message mean to you? How are you going through day-to-day life? What do you think about the world today? What do you think of the meaning of God being love that is complete, or God falling apart? And how do you hold yourself together? Thank you so much for your time and for being a part of the world with me. If I can help you in some way through a session, you could book a session at my website at abbeynormalswisdomquest.com. I'd be honored to do a journey into anything you've got going on and share some translation, some wisdom and healing with you personally. Thank you all so much again, and I wish you all a beautiful day.